If an Alabama receiver gets injured in the woods, do you still get to use it as an excuse for losing the Natty?
Welcome to My Got a Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I are joined by John Tweet Sports. We talk about teaming up over at Dawgs Central, but we spend most of our time answering questions from you, our listeners. As always, remember to check out store.mygotapodcast.com to see our latest merch. And you can follow us on social media at My Got a Podcast. Finally, if you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, 5 stars obviously, and review the show. If you leave us a review, you just might hear it on an upcoming episode. Now, let's join the conversation in progress. And we're back after many months of hiatus. What started as a quick break kind of lingered. And so that was actually mainly my fault, at least, especially initially. We talked to Coach Trill right before G-Day, and then I left for spring break literally the day of G-Day. And I think that kind of threw us for a loop. But we're back. We've got John Powell, as always, and John Tweet Sports has joined us as this is our first My Got a Podcast episode as part of Dawgs Central officially. So
I feel like we need
over
you need confetti and like the celebratory horns.
We need like our own Dawgs Central audio clip.
Absolutely. I'm down.
Sound branding.
Thoughts are going through my mind. Soundboard edition. We need to make it to add for sure.
I love it.
I have to note that this is my first time ever, at least on the podcast, drinking out of my Bulldog Bourbon Social Club cup, even though I didn't make it to G-Day. Frip Dog, my dad, grabbed me a couple. So I got this from my dad.
Man, that's a coveted piece of glassware.
Those are collector's items. They went very quickly at G-Day, and so you're very fortunate that Frip Dog was there, making friends with Corey Allen and getting you cups. It's good times.
That's right. And I think I'm copying you, or at least and Bobby Wilson, who was at the Bulldogs Battling Breast Cancer tournament today, posted a picture with his Buffalo Trace and I think John, you posted the same. So I was just figuring
did. So I Bobby and some other folks are at the Bulldogs Battling Breast Cancer charity golf tournament. Great golf tournament. They had pulled out the Bulldog Bourbon Social Club cups and were drinking some Buffalo Trace on the back nine. And so I joined them earlier today from my home with the Bulldog Bourbon Social Club cup, drinking on my back porch. So back nine, back porch, same cup. It was all meant to be.
It's like you were there.
Exactly. I basically was at the golf tournament. So
right.
Shout out to the Bulldog Bourbon Social Club. Very exciting to have a tailgate in Atlanta that we can share more about and talk about as we get closer to football. Guys, we're like 58 days away or something. How many days?
We're at 54.
54 at the time of recording, yes.
Yes.
It's going to be fantastic.
I know because we've got the in the Dawgs Central forum, we've got the countdown to kickoff thread going. And so today, I hadn't posted on it yet. I need to do that before I go to bed because I wanted to throw out the Justin Schaefer like diving over the pile in the national championship game. That was going to be my contribution for 54 days. That's what I thought of.
That's a good one. That was a great moment in the national championship game. As Zeus was running over people, Justin Schaefer thought, why don't I just belly flop on top of this mass of humanity? It's great.
Yeah, I lived back through that the other night. We were at my family. We just got back from Fripp, so we were down there for the 4th of July with my family and a bunch of other folks, my extended family. And my mom and dad and I sat up and watched the Natty replay on the SEC Takeover night, and definitely got a chuckle when that play happened again. It was I don't know, man. It's like we just keep reliving it over and over. new things keep popping up and giving different feelings. I know, like I wrote in my blog last week. So like, I guess another Dawgs Central thing, right? So I started a blog up on Dawgs Central, so you can go check that out on dogscentral.com. And like, this beach trip that we go on, a lot of dog fans, and every year, at some point the conversation happens of like, hey, you think this is going to be our year? And we didn't have to have that conversation. Like it was, it was kind of a new weird feeling coming off of that. So that's pretty cool.
Great.
So, all right,
we're just three dudes. We're just three dudes enjoying basking in the last few weeks of being national champions.
Yeah. I mean, we're defending national champions until we aren't. So that's
true.
That's kind of the way I think about it.
I agree. Hey, we're defending national champions until someone else wins it. So
until someone else wins it. That's right. That's fair.
We have until January, and hopefully Georgia will win another one, and then we'll have another year of this. But even if Georgia happens not to win another national championship, I'm going to celebrate all the way up until the end of the fourth quarter of the national championship game.
That's right.
In January, I will be wearing my Natty gear. No matter what happens to Georgia this season, I will be celebrating, and I don't care because I am a national champion.
Yes.
These are all great points. I stand corrected. The rest of the SEC has several more months of us being completely miserable.
Absolutely. You wait. If Georgia, and I don't expect Georgia to stumble and lose a regular season game, but God forbid that happens, the first thing I will do is remind whoever we lose that regular season game to that we are the national champions.
I just can't wait to post an L on Florida's schedule. You were beaten by the defending national champion.
Georgia Bulldogs.
Was the college football world at large ready for what? I feel like they weren't ready for what they were going to have to hear from us.
No,
and like they did this, they built this with all the 1980 jokes.
It's true.
Listen, I tweeted this the other day because somebody mentioned, that Georgia fans are still being insufferable. And listen, I get it. I was on the other side of this for my entire life with other teams,
right?
And seeing them celebrate and seeing them say the things that they say in person on social media. And guys, we spent the most recent years, I'll say the Kirby Smart years. We can go way back, but let's say, there was 2012 with Georgia coming up 5 yards short versus Alabama and all that kind of stuff that was said. Then there was Georgia always has, Steve Spurrier saying Georgia gets all his talent and I don't know what happens to him. We have gone, decades of. And then when Kirby Smart came and Georgia went to the national championship and lost on 2nd 26, we heard Kirby dumb. Kirby will never win a national championship. 1980.
Bowl haircut.
Exactly. Bowl cut Kirby. Georgia does less with more. Recruiting champions. All of these things, right? So I apologize for nothing, personally, because I feel like that I am still making withdrawals from the bank that was filled up over years. And there's a lot in this account, right? Like they were just making deposits. And I have shown up to make all the withdrawals of what is left in this account from years of hearing it. So
I love it. That's a great analogy.
Yep.
The house that our rivals built. It all came crashing down.
Listen,
it's a good lesson to learn, right?
Be
careful what you say.
Our rival scientists only thought about if they could and not if they should, and so they have created this Jurassic Park that they are now trying to escape from. And I'm sorry, we are the dinosaurs. I am the Velociraptor. that is going to eat you when you get out of your car and slide down the hill in the mudslide. So there you go.
I'm over here dying because I've used that GIF multiple times recently.
Yes.
That was well played. Well played. Well, we've got a ton of like awesome listener questions. I did want to talk just a little bit about Dawgs Central. I don't know, John, if you can tell the folks a little bit about it. I mean, in general, like as far as the community, we've got a great community going on. A lot of the folks that we've all collaborated with, as well as some new faces for me personally. And it's kind of gotten me. I mean, I am really enjoying the recruiting coverage. It's like the best I've been reading in a while, and has like really sucked me back into it. So it's been awesome. So I don't know. Let's talk about that a bit.
Yeah, so Dawgs Central, dogscentral.com. It's a website that we have launched, a few of us. And really what Dawgs Central, the idea was, there are a lot of us that have been fans for a long time that have delved into, things like analyzing the team, pontificating about the team, reading, X's and O's, following recruiting, creating content around Georgia. And there's never been a better time for, kind of fan-based content creators to come together and create something that is meaningful. So we have assembled a group of what I consider to be some of the best content creators in the Georgia sports community. And not only are we fans and some of us alumni, but we are also knowledgeable, right? Like we have folks who know how the game works. We have folks who know X's and O's. We have folks who know the analytics. We have folks who are well sourced and connected in recruiting. And so,
sourced.
Yes, and connected in recruiting.
Shockingly,
yes. Yes. So, so we have, brought together myself, Field Street Forum, Dustin and Jason from Field Street Forum, who are the recruiting guys, Graham Coffey, who does great work in, analysis, X's and O's, breaking down the game, and also running some betting lines, and Josh from Dog Stats, who does great with analytics, and My Got a Podcast, 100 Sanford Podcasts, TT7 Productions, which is our guy Trey. He makes a lot of the hype videos that you have seen for Georgia players. And does a fantastic job of those. And he actually works directly with the players to create these hype videos. And so we have, assembled a group of content creators to just push out a lot of content for the Georgia sports community. So I'm excited about it personally. I'm excited about us continuing to evolve it. Right now, we have a website that has a community forum. Honestly, it's an old school message board feel with some new technology. And I like it. I like that. We are going to be rolling out a lot of new features that will bring it more into like, a blend of a Discord and an old school message board and a Twitter kind of vibe to it. But we also have that, and then we have articles that are posted on the site, and blogs. Jim has a great blog that he writes, the Junkyard blog that he has brought back for Dawgs Central. And so I'm just excited personally, to have a community where we have a few hundred members now already that are engaging, and it's a really good place. It's a place to if you are into Georgia sports, you want to get some intel, you want to get some analysis, and also just have some fun with guys like the ones on this podcast that just create good Georgia content. It's a good spot to be. So that's Dawgs Central. Excited that My Got a Podcast is part of the family, and excited to continue to evolve that site over the next few months as we run into football season.
Ongoing.
Ongoing. Yeah. I was really thinking like leading up to the season, we're going to have a lot of content that we're pushing out, a lot of new features on the site that we're pushing out. But this is something that's going to be around for a long time. So excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, man, it's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. I mean, I had, been on message boards in the past, been on some pay sites in the past, and I was at the point where I wasn't on one anymore. And I mean, I'm having a blast on it just as a user as well. Reading the forum, posting on the forum, seeing all the reactions. There are people will be very happy to know, as far as we're concerned, that the forum does support GIFs. So there are lots of GIFs being used in the forum.
Crucial.
It's pretty awesome.
It's really nice. So give it a shot, dawgscentral.com. If you have questions, you can reach out. There's a contact form on there, or you can just direct message me at John Tweet Sports on Twitter. You can get in touch with us. We're happy to answer any questions and help you become part of the community.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, thanks for running that down.
Yeah.
It's been fun to watch it evolve. We have the text thread, and we have the Dawgs Central text thread, which goes even more off the rails than the normal text thread.
The group chats and the text threads are they're becoming things of legend at this point. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like all of a sudden this thing just came. I mean, I guess we knew it was coming, but it just the way that it rolled out was just so fast. It was like almost like me joining My God a Podcast was like, oh yeah, we're part of Dawgs Central now, and it's awesome, and the website's awesome. And John's like, yeah, we're making updates, and it's like, oh wow, this is great. I think the YouTube embed, and all that stuff got rolled out, which is even better.
It's nice. So pop on over, give us a shot.
Yeah, the technology is legit. It's super easy to use. So yeah, definitely come check it out. We're all on there. We're all active on the forum. And like John said, more stuff coming down the track, as what was the our teaser tweet that we kept tweeting before we said exactly what was coming down the track, but that's what it was.
Great.
So yeah. Awesome. All right. You guys, you want to hop through? We got a ton of awesome listener questions from our listeners. Like, no surprise. You guys want to hop into those?
Let's do it.
All right. So first up, we got Chris Burnett, a.k.a. Bernie Dog on Twitter. Any truth to the rumor that Mechie and Williams will miss tonight's recording? So
they picked up an injury, so we're down 2 wide receivers. I don't know that they're going to make it through.
I guess the one thing I want to harp on this is that, like, Chris Marler, like, still won't let that go. It's still, like, shocking to me. I had a conversation at the beach with one of my buddies who's an Auburn guy, and I was like, what is the deal? I was like, you have lived with them and have dealt with them for much longer than I have. I was like, what is the deal? Like, can they ever, like, it just admit that they lost, or is it always something? And he was like, oh, Jim, you don't understand. He's like, it's always something. And he's like, some of them, he's like, I have a nephew who he told me that he believes it is their God-given right, to win the national championship. And he's like not joking. Like, he actually believes that. Obviously not everyone is like that. And I have plenty of friends that aren't like that, but the online stuff is continues to be comical, and I still laugh. So,
well, I mean, all you have to do is look at Alabama's head coach, and we don't have to go into this too deep because we are national champions, and it doesn't really matter what they think.
It really doesn't matter,
but it really doesn't. But their coach went out at a coach's clinic and gave a speech a few weeks after losing the national championship, and was like, guys didn't create value for themselves. They didn't do the things that they need to do. And then when it came time for the game, and I'm like, who
is this person?
Like, I thought this was a program where the guys didn't get on the field if they didn't create value for themselves. You have so much talent that, like, you're not going to be out there if you haven't done the things that you need to do to create value for yourself and be able to step up in the moment, and et cetera, et cetera. And then, their head coach goes out and says basically what their fan base is doing, and makes the excuses that these guys didn't do the things that they need to do. And so Nick Saban is the best college football coach of all time, hands down. But he is one that he has a very difficult time losing. And when he loses, he turns it on he projects it to other people. It's kind of like when I haven't done something around the house that I'm supposed to do, and my wife asked me about it, and I project it onto my kids and say, well, these kids they were going crazy all day. Like I had to do all blah blah blah. When in
Right.
reality, we just did. I could have just said, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't get it done." But that's the human nature, and so the two. I'm personally over the two wide receiver thing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you play the game with the guys who are available to play the game. And hypotheticals, if we want to do hypotheticals, we could go all the way back to say, what if Aaron Murray had spiked the ball? We would have beat you. Like, look, you could do hypotheticals over and over and over. At the end of the day, hypotheticals, there are no hypothetical trophies. The trophy is in Athens for the national championship, and Georgia won it. And we will celebrate and have a good time and enjoy the delicious tears of Alabama fans.
It would be like typically at this point where I would have a background, but we're on Zencaster, but I'd be like pointing at some excuses.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
I'd make a GIF about it. We'll have to revisit that in the future.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
for
dude.
sure.
The mental ninjutsu or gymnastics or whatever that these guys have to go through when they talk about the fact that Georgia didn't have any injuries is just mind-boggling. Even I think Marler, not to pick on him because I like Marler. He's got good
I do too. I don't know why I singled him out. Well, I do know why I did, but I do like him.
Well, because he keeps bringing it up. First of all,
Exactly.
he kind of invites it on himself. So anyway, the list that they are provided with, of all the different injuries, like Tate Ratledge and all of these guys, George Pickens, blah blah blah. Like, we figured out ways to win with a depleted squad all season long. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, you lost your best players, but at the same time, like, dude, get over it.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah. Well, my hypothetical is always, what if Georgia hadn't lost their leading pass rusher and didn't have an injured safety in Chris Smith for the SEC championship game? There's a lot of things that can go. At the end of the day, Mechie and Williams were not available, and they're not available for this podcast. And ask them so we can move on.
Yeah, apologies. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a nice segue into our next question from HBTFD 89. Is Alabama football our bitch now? People are saying yes.
Sorry, Carter.
Sorry, Carter.
People are talking.
People are talking. My only thing is, like, I wouldn't take that too far, because, like, whenever the whole, like, Saban is done, the dynasty is over, that's when they really strike back. So, you know what? Like, I don't feel the need to say it. I'll just say we're national champions, and there's nothing they can say back to that. So that's kind of how that's how I'm approaching it, at least right now.
I would say the more that people talk about wide receivers being out, the more that they are.
I think that's fair. Sorry.
the more you bring it up, the more you become a. It's just a fact.
I think we have a ways to go before Alabama.
Yes.
But sure. I will relish in this one for sure.
Absolutely. All right. So next one from friend of the show, 51-7 GATA. He's got a couple. And first is very prevalent, big topic right now. As conference realignment continues, are y'all in favor? Are y'all in favor of the top 40 to 50 schools creating their own league, as we have seen some suggest will eventually happen? I know I'm pretty vocal on this, like, that I don't want that to happen. I don't know. I like my concern, and I know this is very get off my lawn kind of deal, but actually Graham did a great job talking about this on Ask Dawgs Central, I think 2 weeks back. I don't want to lose the regionalism. So if there's a way to keep the regionalism there and where you're playing your traditional rivals, then maybe I'm okay with it. But this stuff that we're seeing right now with USC and UCLA going into the Big Ten, I don't get it. And not to do like too many think pieces or whatever, but you're gonna have like the swimming and diving team going from Los Angeles like to Maryland, and like and I don't get it. But anyways.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I don't know. I don't like the conference realignment. It's just going to further separate what made college football special. Um, I think that paying the players, while I think it was a positive step, I think even that has caused college football to change completely as well. And then the conference realignment situation is just taking it to a whole other level. I have the outsider's view of looking at this because I've seen it happening, and it actually almost happened. I say almost, but like really it didn't almost happen. But there was talk of soccer doing this too. So having basically the Champions League, which is the top leagues in Europe, basically get together and play the most prestigious tournament of world soccer. And that tournament is just different than when you're at home playing, your local league, right? So, the Manchester United, I'm a Manchester United fan, we play all teams from all over England, right? And not all of them play in the Champions League. And frankly, like, a victory over Leeds is basically the same as a victory over Florida for us. And they don't ever play in the Champions League anymore. So, like, if you go to something like that, you're going to lose what makes everything special about playing the game that you love, right? So, I don't know. I think that if you can keep the rivalries, but even then, like with the conferences realigning with the USC and the UCLA going to the Big Ten, like are they not even going to care? Like, oh yeah, we beat Wisconsin. Like, wait, who?
Yeah, it'll be fun. Like the first time you go, it was like the first time we played Missouri, right? I mean, we added a school from the Midwest to the SEC, and that first year was a lot of fun. And now it's just kind of like, yeah, we're playing Missouri again.
I can't wait to see those California dudes travel to Madison, Wisconsin in the middle of December, in the middle of November or whatever.
It's gonna be brutal. Yeah, listen, I agree with what y'all are saying. I think for me, I honestly think the product on the field in many ways is going to be better by having these bigger leagues, right? Like,
Yep,
I mean, who
I can't
doesn't
disagree
want
with
to see? Yeah, who doesn't want to see Ohio State go play USC? And with maybe if USC gets it together, you have two top 10 teams. But I think for me, I agree with the regionalism, with the historic rivalries, trying to keep some of those intact. I also just think that we were already headed this way. If you look at Georgia's like non-conference schedule in 25, 6, 7, 8, if you look out into the future, Georgia had already started scheduling home and homes with Texas, home and home with Florida State, home and home with Ohio State, Oklahoma. The Clemson was back on the schedule. Like those things were already happening. So I think the product on the field is going to be better. It was going to be better without the super leagues. And I think the question comes down to how do you create space for some of those, like, I'll say it this way, Auburn, Georgia is a good example. No one outside of Auburn and Georgia probably cares about Auburn and Georgia, right? Like, I don't think people in LSU are caring about like the Auburn Georgia rivalry. But that means something. It means something in recruiting. It means something in a historical context. It means something to this market. It means something from a fan experience, a school experience. Those are the rivalries that I feel like, how do you keep those intact? Because even I'll say this, like even like Vandy, Tennessee, which is for all intents and purposes a terrible rivalry for the most part. You have situations where Vanderbilt was on a pretty good streak with like they weren't on a winning streak, but they had won a few, out of like the
Yeah.
last 5 or 6 or whatever. And those things I think matter for the regional context. And I just don't see how you can keep that when you have, a 24 team league and you're trying to actually play other teams. So what you end up having to do, and this is what the SEC has already pushed out there, is you end up having to say, we're going to have a giant conference and we're going to create our own playoff system to see who kind of gets into the whatever the college football playoff system ends up being. And I think that's what's going to happen, is that you're going to have these systems where you're going to have a super conference. That super conference is going to have its own kind of, play in like championship kind of playoff scenario to try to create, a little bit of a leg up on, we are truly putting forth we are crowning the true champion of our conference to go forth into whatever the college football playoff is. And that's the thing that's going to get, yeah.
We just need Georgia Southern to beat Florida. Like, you just need Georgia Southern to beat Florida. All right.
Exactly. I'm with you.
We've got to have those games, right? Like, you just
Listen,
need.
I heard a Miami fan bring that up the other day, to a Florida fan, and just say Georgia Southern beat Florida without completing a pass. And I thought, I was like, this is what college football is all about.
Yeah.
It's about Georgia Southern beating Florida without completing a single pass.
Well,
Like, that is what we need more of. And if we can figure out how to get more of that into college football, I will personally be happy.
Well, I think your product on the field getting better comment is super important, because I feel like that's what all people are pointing to and wanting. But like for me, as a diehard college fan, like I'm not going to sit around here and say the product on the field of college football is better than the product on the field in the NFL. The NFL has way better players. What they do is absolutely insane. And like anyone who ever says this stuff about the undefeated college team can beat the winless pro team, like, no, those teams are infinitely better than the college teams. Like, they're not on the same planet. But I don't really, I used to be very big in the NFL, and I'm not anymore. Like I got to a point where I kind of like chose, and I went down the college path, and I'm all in on college. And like, I say I don't care, but like, it's about pulling for your team and seeing these rivalries and like the pageantry. And like, maybe maybe I'm sounding lame or whatever, but like, that's what it is for me. There is better football out there in the NFL, and I don't watch nearly as much of the NFL.
Well, I have friends who have played for and who have coached at schools that are in like the Sun Belt Conference, for example, or even some of the smaller like FCS schools, and I have friends who have coached and played on teams that have played at Columbia, South Carolina, that have played at Auburn, that have played at Georgia, and gotten destroyed, right? Like the games weren't even close, but the experience for those guys as a college experience, were like, every one of them are like, yeah, we got the brakes beat off of us, but as a college student or a college coach, it was pretty cool to roll into Jordan Hare Stadium and give it a go versus Auburn, right? Like, and I think that's the difference. Is you got to think about this as, unless we're going to get into super leagues that are truly salaried contract players, you're going to have guys who are not just the depth. You're going to have schools and players on teams that are just not as talented as people tend to think college teams are, because you have, some teams that are just really, really good and have NFL talent on their roster. But think about Georgia, right? So I used an example the other day. Georgia got 15 players drafted, set an NFL record for number of players drafted from one school, right? 15. How many people were on Georgia's roster? Right? I mean, you're talking 100 kids, right? And so 15 was the record. Like, I mean, so when you think about it that way, I personally don't think parity exists for most of college football, and I don't think it should. Like, I think you should have opportunities where It's going to be a noon game on Saturday, and this little school is going to roll in, and we're going to have a great time with all the pageantry, and the game's going to be reasonably affordable, and it's going to be fun. And I think if you make it bigger than that for every week, then I think that's where you have a problem. When you're trying to make it every week has to be Georgia versus Ohio State, or Georgia versus Alabama, or Georgia versus this caliber. I think that's where you truly diminish the spirit of college football.
Yeah, you're definitely going to, I mean, at that point, you're going to lose that quest for perfection, right? Like, can we have a team that's going to go, undefeated, et cetera? That's going to go away. And, not that should be the singular reason, but that's one of the things for me.
All
okay.
Right.
I think this one, we could maybe do this one quickly, because I feel like this could be we need Hunter to have this full discussion. But
yes.
His second question was uniform Twitter. Do we ever see the white helmet in a game? If you say ever is a very long time, so I'm hesitant to ever rule anything out. I don't think anytime soon. Definitely not this year.
Personally, I think we see a white helmet in a game in the next 5 years. I don't think it's this year. I don't think it's next year, but I do think you get into SEC expansion. You get into just the market that college football is moving into, like we were just talking about with expansion of conferences and with the kind of these super conferences. I think branding, I think all of that stuff is going to play a much bigger part. And so personally, I think you see a white helmet on the Georgia field within the next 5 years.
Interesting. Yeah, I think you make good points. My only counter argument to that is Kirby Smart.
Kirby Smart put a black jersey with a dog collar.
This is true.
Like spikes,
a
spiked collar.
This is true.
on a team in a New Year's Six bowl.
Very true. Very true.
I'm just saying. I think the guy is. I think the guy's a little bit closer to disrupting some of that if it creates an advantage in recruiting or creates some monetary situation from merchandise or branding or whatever. I think Kirby would do it.
Fair.
What about you, John Powell? We see
Sorry,
a white helmet.
I just had a whole situation here. just go down. I wanted to strangle people and this dog we're dog sitting.
Oh, that wasn't Champ Bailey. Okay.
No,
didn't sound like Champ Bailey.
No, It's this little Wookiee looking dog.
Through the magic of editing, no one would have even known had you not said anything.
What were we talking about?
We're talking about do we ever see a white helmet in a game?
And
ever in a long time, yeah.
No, no. The short answer, I think, is no. I just don't see Kirby. I don't see Kirby indulging in that at all, ever. I just don't. My gut just says that we're just going to be stuck with the red and white jerseys, red helmets, silver breeches, and the occasional black jersey situation.
I mean, I can see everyone's point, and I know we got to move on because we have a lot of questions to get to. But I will say this: Kirby Smart had a 1980 throwback uniform. Kirby Smart put out a black jersey with a spiked dog collar on it. The throwback uniform had red pants. He has become the king of alternate uniforms in recruiting photos. And those black jerseys, right? Remember when recruits used to wear them when Kirby Smart first got here, and we were like, is the team ever going to wear them? Because he puts some recruits in them all the time, and then the team never wears them. And then all of a sudden, the team started wearing them. So I do think Kirby, if he feels like he has a team that is like last season, if the team is creating momentum, and you're like, wait, this team could be the team that wins it all, I do think that's where he tends to pull back and say, we're not messing. Yeah, we're not exactly. Yeah. We're not no distractions. We're not throwing anything out. Exactly. Yeah. But I will say, if that happens to be the case where, Georgia ends up and I don't think it'll happen. Definitely don't think it'll happen this year. But Georgia ends up in a situation where maybe they've lost one that they shouldn't lose or two they shouldn't lose. I think you get to the point of like, let's have some fun in this place, and maybe the white helmets come out.
I don't know, man. I just look at it as you mentioned the black jerseys. You mentioned the black jerseys, which Rick ripped that Band-Aid off for him. So those were already out there.
The spike collar. The spike.
I know. Whatever.
Like a goofy, gimmicky.
I don't even know what you're talking about. I choose to ignore it.
All right.
We have the black jerseys. Which was Rick did that.
It's
then
true.
You had the 40th anniversary thing, which kind of was almost quasi forced upon him because of a marketing situation. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can move on. My thing is just like, ever is a big word. So to say that we would never see them, that's a very long time possibility. So I hate to just say never on anything.
Carter may be in college by the time we get there.
Hey, there we go. All right, so Zach, SC Dog 864. The first part of his question was around general feelings toward direction of college football going in, NIL, teams moving conferences. I think we talked about that for the most part. So, but the second part was like, how did y'all react to the little cat fight between Saban and Fisher a little while ago? So that we haven't recorded since that happened. I guess I will say I can maybe kick it off. The interesting thing to me is that, Saban is very calculated, and he never does anything without like a reason behind it. But in this instance, I do wonder if he miscalculated. I guess that's kind of my question there.
Yeah, I don't know. That whole thing just seems so surreal to me. It's just so out of character for Saban to go out there. I mean, let's face it. Like, the guy is on the ropes, and he seems like a wounded animal because he's making excuses and he's throwing out things with the NIL situation. He's basically losing on the recruiting trail, or so we're led to believe, right? I don't know, man. The whole thing is just crazy. Like, the fact that he went out there and suggested that, and then not only that, but then to have Jimbo Fisher, which, by and large, these guys seem like that they have a pretty good relationship with him, except for Lane Kiffin, which God bless him. I mean, like, seriously, like, they all kind of treat him like a father or a grandfather or something that's like revered and respected. But to have Fisher, the way that he was speaking, the inflection and the emphasis that he was putting on the words that he was using was just wow. I mean, I was just like, damn, son, I would have kept my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I'll just give you some quick thoughts because this goes back a long time. People don't realize. So Jimbo Fisher was going to be hired as the head coach at UAB in Birmingham. This was let's see. I was going back and looking. So he was the offensive coordinator at LSU. So 2007, Jimbo Fisher was going to be hired as the head coach at UAB. The Alabama Board of Regents blocked the Jimbo Fisher hire, and they blocked it because they said for financial reasons or whatever. The Alabama Board of Regents that blocked the Jimbo Fisher hire oversees two schools, the University of Alabama and the University of Alabama Birmingham. Maybe University of Alabama Huntsville, whatever. But the two main schools that board oversees, makes decisions for the University of Alabama and the University of Alabama Birmingham. Jimbo Fisher, people say that Jimbo Fisher was blocked because he was the offensive coordinator at LSU under Nick Saban when they won a national championship. The rumor on the street is Nick Saban was coming in to be the head coach of Alabama. They wanted Jimbo Fisher to be available to be Nick Saban's offensive coordinator and for him not to be the head coach at UAB, that would be more enticing for him to do that than be the offensive coordinator at Alabama. And so Jimbo alluded to this in his rant when he said, There's a reason I didn't go work for him. And so this goes back to Jimbo Fisher going to Florida State and not going to be the offensive coordinator at Alabama when Nick Saban came to Alabama. And so that riff falls out. I do think that Nick Saban in this case, I think he was just an old man like talking. Like I don't think he was calculated in that moment because he named Jimbo Fisher and Deion Sanders. Like, why are you talking about Jackson State? Like, no, so.
Of all the places to throw stones at.
Exactly. So, but I do think the reason that Jimbo's reaction was what it was is because of that history. I don't think that the reaction was because of what Saban said necessarily for it to be that visceral. I think it was visceral because Jimbo Fisher had that history with Nick Saban. And it was all coming to the forefront where it was kind of like, oh, Nick, it's kind of like I felt that it being Jimbo feeling like Nick Saban saying, this guy there's no way he can succeed as a coach, like doing things the way that coaches do them. He has to go do something else. And I think that was where Jimbo felt like from that history, felt like, oh, he's basically saying like, I can't do this. And my lack of success in all these other areas has been because I wasn't with him, and now I'm having success in this area because I'm cheating and not because I'm, at the end of the day, Texas A&M is cheating. Like they bought their recruiting class, so it is what it is. Nick Saban was right, but I do think he was just talking. So
that's funny. It feels like when my grandfather, I guess your grandfather, my grandfather would get a little too deep in the Manhattans and start talking smack to his sons. And it would be like, grandpa's drinking again.
Awesome. All right, let's see. We got Fletcher Proctor. After Jalen Carter goes number 1 in the 2023 NFL draft, who is Georgia's best chance to go number 1 in 2024? #3Pete.
This is the easiest question on this list. Have you heard of a guy named Brock Bowers?
Yes.
He'd be eligible for the 2024 draft. That would be my bet if I were betting.
Okay. I'm with you. I was trying to come up with a clever answer too, and I couldn't get past Brock Bowers. So
yeah, I would say Brock Bowers is probably going to be everyone's bet. Yeah, but what was the question again? Like how high? Number one?
No, so who's the best bet to go number 1 overall in the next year? Okay. So basically, we had number 1. Who else would you take? Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure who else would be that. I mean, he's the best player on the team right now. So I'm not. Although that doesn't, I guess it doesn't technically necessarily mean anything.
Well, it's
all about defense, right?
Yeah, it's all about who's draft eligible and what teams need, right? So in 2024, Georgia's not going to have a quarterback. Knock on wood, maybe we will, but I don't see us having a quarterback in the 2024 draft that's good enough to go number 1 overall, which is typically where you can do that. If you go down from there, you're looking at, defense. Maybe typically teams don't take, an offensive lineman number 1 overall unless they just have a major need and there's some guy that's just an absolute stud. So maybe you're in a situation where you have a guy like Amarius Mims or I think Broderick Jones will be, I don't know when he's draft eligible, but maybe you have that. But I think on the offensive side, it's got to be Brock Bowers has got to be your best bet. On the defensive side, maybe you're looking at, Georgia has some good linebackers that are coming up. You have Small Munden, who's a guy that I think is just going to be fantastic before it's all said and done. But Keely Ringo is draft eligible this year, and I think he goes. I just don't. Yeah, I think you start whittling it down. It's got to be Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
And for the record, I don't think Georgia's having the number 1 overall pick in the draft in 2024. I don't think that's happening, but if it were, I think that's who it would be.
Fair. All right. Next up, we got Brett Belding, which Brett actually was at Fripp when I was, and we were unable to hook up. So, Brett, apologies. That's probably mainly my fault. We had some unfortunate weather that kind of messed up a couple of days. At any rate, who is going to replace Jordan Davis as America's favorite SEC Media Days personality? Which Media Days are this coming week, right?
It's a
Coming up
week
next week.
A week. It's July 18th. So whenever you're listening to this, July 18th.
Do we know? We don't know who's being sent for sure, right? It hasn't been announced yet.
No. Okay. If personally, if I had to guess, you typically, would take one from offense and one from defense. If who's going to replace Jordan Davis, I mean, personally, I could see. I think Nolan Smith.
Nolan Smith will be the face,
and
but is he going to be that jovial guy?
I think he will be. I think Nolan Smith is an actual like bubbly, like really energetic guy. I think Jordan Davis is just like the size factor. I think gives him an extra. There's just extra to it because he's just so big. It takes up space and then that energy. But
he's like a big teddy bear, but he's like a giant cuddly teddy bear.
Yeah, but I think Nolan Smith's going to get a lot of FaceTime this year. I think he'll probably be my bet to go to media days and win the crowd over.
I mean, could it be as
far as Nolan Smith gives me Rennie Curran vibes in that regard.
I mean, when he like unsolicited started defending Stetson after a game last year, like that kind of stuff shows you. I mean, I think that he's a good interview for one thing, as far as the media folks are concerned. He wasn't even asked that question and kind of jumped in all of that, which does lead me though to Stetson. I mean, because like Stetson, I assume Stetson's the offensive guy that'll go. I would think.
You would think.
And I mean, I know like. I mean, last year, JT Daniels, had to sit down with Marty Smith. Does Marty Smith have to sit down with Stetson Bennett this year? That could get interesting. I don't know.
I think Marty Smith does because I think Marty Smith is, he's that country, like he and Stetson have some kindred spirit. So I think there would be sit down just because of their kindred spirit there. But Stetson, like I personally, I'm a big fan of Stetson Bennett. I don't think his personality is going to win any hearts and minds.
How do we feel about Tate Ratledge being up there?
No way, dude. So Tate. Shout out Rome, Georgia. That's where I grew up. That's where I'm from. That's Tate Ratledge hometown as well. So big shout out to Rome, Georgia. I love Tate. No way, there's no way Kirby Smart is sending Tate Ratledge and his mullet and his 69 jersey to represent Georgia.
We can only hope. His Joe Diffie vibe going up there.
I love it.
Amazing. Brett had a follow-up or a second question. Are we worried about Tennessee or not? And we kind of transitioned into some actual season type questions here. Are you guys worried about Tennessee? JP, you worried about Tennessee?
I'm not worried about Tennessee. I'll be worried about Tennessee for maybe like a couple of quarters, just like we were last year. But I think that we should be fine.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm curious. Like, so many teams take that year 2 jump, but like I question if that applies to what they do. I don't know.
Tennessee is returning a lot of players on both offense and defense. The question is, Josh Heupel has never been a guy who has shown any propensity to actually create dominant lines of scrimmage. And I don't think Tennessee is going to have a dominant line of scrimmage this year. And so for that reason, I'm not necessarily worried about Tennessee. But Hendon Hooker and Cedric Tillman and those guys, man, those guys can get after it. And we saw in that first quarter, like we were all holding our breath, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But I think what we also saw is after Tennessee made, kind of their
Script.
Their charge and ran their script. Georgia was able to win the line of scrimmage, and I think Georgia will be able to win the line of scrimmage again versus Tennessee until Josh Heupel can build a dominant line of scrimmage on either side of the ball. You got to have one, whether it's offense or defense. You got to have one that can actually hold their own, and I don't think he has either again this year.
Yeah, I think that gets to kind of like to expand a little bit more about my why I'm not sure about this team taking a jump in year two. Mm-hmm. Is that like that offense was very new, and like you saw in a game right against Georgia of like, oh, it's the first time we're actually seeing it live. How do we deal with this, right? And then like you said, the kind of the line went over. Like now that there's a year worth of tape on that offense, I do wonder like could they like that offense was so explosive last season? Could it actually fall back to the median a little bit now that folks, I don't know, they've seen it and they've seen a full year of tape on it in the SEC. You know, what'll that mean? So it'll be interesting to see.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. UGA Hoops Mafia. What's the biggest trap game on the schedule? Is there a trap game on the schedule?
So I'm gonna say this, and people are gonna think that I have lost my mind. That's okay. That's no different.
I have a feeling that you and I are going to say the same thing, John. But go ahead.
Maybe not. It'll be no different than any other day. People thinking I've lost my mind. For me, I think at Mississippi State on November the 12th. For me, feels like the trap game for Georgia. And the reason being is you have Mike Leach and his kooky, like air raid offense that most of the SEC has been able to figure out, but you're going to be sandwiched in between. You're coming off of Florida, Tennessee, and then you have to go to Kentucky. And I think Kentucky, I have picked Kentucky to finish second in the SEC East this year in my standing. So I think you're going to be in a situation where you're looking down. Probably not a game to like win the East. Like I think maybe the East is pretty much clinched at that point, but I think you're going to be looking down a pretty, decent showdown with Kentucky coming up, and you have that Mississippi State game just squeezed right in there where you have to go to Starkville with the cowbells and like all that stuff. So if I'm looking at the schedule, like just because of the way it lines up where Georgia's going to be up for Florida, going to be up for Tennessee, Kentucky's going to maybe have something on the line for that game, and then you got Mississippi State thrown in there. So that's me. No.
That's a good one. I mean, it meets like one of my things with questions like this is it has to meet the definition of a trap game, right? Which to me is generally like you're kind of looking ahead to the next week, and I think that definitely fits here. JP, what was that the one you had, John?
It wasn't actually, but I do like his thinking. Jim, before I go, what's yours?
Well, I was trying to figure out one that would fit that description, and like the only one, I can't beat that one. Actually, I think that's a great one. The one I was like, I kind of had a question for you guys. Like, do we know anything about Missouri this year? Because like I was just looking at our schedule as far as like looking ahead. Like, Auburn could be a look ahead game, but I feel like Missouri is so bad, so that kind of rules that one out.
So I know. Here's what I know about Missouri. Missouri got Luther Burden, who was the best wide receiver in the 2022 class, who had basically come down to Georgia was one of the top schools. He's from Missouri. He went to Missouri. Luther Burden is a guy that I love watching play football. He is a fantastic wide receiver. And I'm so excited when he hits the transfer portal in January that Georgia will pick him up. The challenge with Missouri is I have no idea who their quarterback is going to be, and I don't think they know who their quarterback is going to be. And they had this stud of a wide receiver, and who's going to throw him the ball. And so their literal like depth chart is a sophomore who didn't play well last year in the games that he got in. You got a graduate transfer, you got a redshirt freshman, and you got a true freshman. Like that's their quarterback room. And so that's what I know about Missouri.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I have a jokier answer, but John, I want to hear what you say because I want to see if your answer was the other thing I'm thinking of.
Well, I hate South Carolina, so my trap game is going to be the game at South Carolina,
Okay.
in
which
September.
Yeah.
that's like the historical trap game for UGA. Like
It's going to be a
the,
noon kickoff and about 900 degrees in that
Yeah.
stadium.
And it's that we're back to the early season in South Carolina, right, where they haven't fallen
Yep.
apart yet, like historically.
September 17th. That's a good one. That's a good one, JP. September 17th at South Carolina is going to be.
that's just where I go. That's just where I go with the history of how UGA's seasons go. Is typically like, do we win the South Carolina game and set the tone for the rest of the season? And then at that point, it becomes a showdown between Georgia and Florida for who goes to the SEC, right?
Yeah.
Historically.
My kind of joking one was, I do find it's odd that it's years ago I would have thought this would, you'd look at the schedule and be like, holy cow, we're playing these two teams back to back. But now is Florida a trap game heading into Tennessee? I don't know.
That's.
I just think both of those two teams are just so down.
But think about 1998 us. Think about like back then, and if you looked and you saw Florida and Tennessee on the schedule back to back, you'd be like, whoa. And now, people aren't having that reaction. It's, I don't know, it's just crazy how things change.
Yeah. Someone sent a tweet of Florida's latest recruiting endeavor, and the energy from these guys just it's just dead, man. Like everything's just dead about this program. I think the 100 Sanford guys, shout out 100 Sanford, Dawgs Central contributors. They tweeted out a GIF that I thought was just so great of two guys just pushing around a little kid, and it was Florida State and Miami just pushing around Florida. When you've gotten to that level so quickly, there are huge dumpster fire level problems at your program.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would take a bet right now if anyone wants to wager from the Florida fan bases that have creeped into the podcast. I would take a bet right now that Georgia wins that Florida game by 24 or more. I think Georgia. I think Billy Napier is in for a very rude awakening. Again, because what wins in the SEC is a line of scrimmage, and Georgia has been doing nothing but building monster line of scrimmage with depth on offense and defense. And Florida is just going to really struggle there again this year.
Notable Florida fan podcast, My God, a Podcast.
Yes, they're all listening.
There's free money on the table. Go for it.
Hey, somebody gave us that 1-star review. It was probably a Florida fan.
It was probably it might have been Dan Mullen.
Could have been. Let's see. Josh B, GDB 426 on Twitter. Everyone's excited about the offense and sleeping on the defense because of who we lost. I think we'll have both units in the top 10 nationally. Thoughts?
I don't know who's sleeping on the defense. If you're sleeping on the defense, you haven't been paying attention, because Jalen Carter is going to light the world on fire. The SEC is going to go scorched earth on the SEC.
Yeah, I think it's more the oh gosh, and now I can't think of his name. Who's the Barstool guy, the Mississippi State, whatever that guy? They're like, you've lost so much. Brandon Walker, thank you. Yeah. Your defense has lost so much. How can you be as good? I mean, that was one of the greatest defenses ever. So you don't have to be that good to still have a great defense. I think it's funny to look back a year ago. Remember, heading into Clemson game, and we all thought all we were talking about was JT Daniels and how many points was the offense going to put up, and Kirby has finally
in the secondary.
What are we doing in the secondary? Kirby has seen the light. We're new age offense and air raid and all this or that, and then what do? We tried it out one of the greatest defenses college football has ever seen. So I don't disagree with the notion, but I think people, like you said, John, should not be sleeping on the defense. I mean, it's a Kirby Smart team. We're going to play good defense.
We'll just name it, Keely Ringo, Jalen Carter, Robert Beal, William Poole. That's 6 guys that started significant games for Georgia last season for that defense that was dominant. You add to that, you have Dan Jackson, you have Tremel Walther, you have Zion Logue. Those are guys
Johnson.
who played. Well, no, those are. I'm just naming the guys who played. Those guys played 200 plus snaps last year, right? And then you throw in Tyke Smith, and that doesn't even include guys, like Warren Brinson, Small Munden, MJ Sherman, Jamon Dumas Johnson. But I think you can get 10. You can essentially get 10 deep with Georgia of guys who played 200 plus snaps, and 6 of those 10 started games last year for this defense. And so I don't think that the Georgia defense is going to be as dominant as they were last year. If they are, then we should just build the statue for Kirby and immediately, and maybe even Will Muschamp, because maybe it was Muschamp. As well. But we should just build the statue for all the defensive coaches if that defense is as dominant as they were last year. I don't think that's going to happen. But what I will say is that in 2021, so last season, the Georgia defense returned 9 players who played 150 plus snaps in 2020. So if you look at the previous year, in 2021, Georgia returned 9 players that played 150 plus snaps. In 2022, so this year, Georgia returns 11 defensive players that played 150 plus snaps last season. So we're returning more guys that played 150 plus snaps than we did last year. And so my long-winded answer is we have guys with experience coming back, and I think people are very much overlooking that because of the guys that Georgia lost. What we don't have, and the question will remain to be seen, is that off-ball backer, that middle linebacker situation, because you don't have Quay Walker and Nakobe Dean, who played a lot of football in 2020 and came back in 2021. You don't have that in the middle. So
nice. I apologize. My trigger fingers were slow. I'm out of practice, and I missed out on
Robert Beal.
Had to get that out. Sorry.
Robert Beal.
Apologies. I did check, FYI, in case anyone was wondering. I did check today the GeorgiaDawgs.com roster to see if the new Scott Howard pronunciations were up yet, and they are not yet up. So still waiting on that. We'll reload the soundboard with any new pronunciations as they come up, because, as we know, that always interests me. And we will have fun. Let's see.
And we'll update it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Let's see. Brian Michaelis, thank God y'all are back. So thank you. Glad to be back. Bowers notwithstanding, who will have more receptions between Ladd and A.D. Mitchell? Who y'all got there?
Go ahead, John.
More receptions is going to be Ladd. But just because of the position that he plays, I think he's going to have a lot more opportunity, kind of that inside receiver to do. A.D. Mitchell is pushed more to the boundary receiver, so he's the guy who's going to be, kind of like post routes, kind of go routes, some of those longer routes. Ladd McConkey is going to be the guy. They'll throw some bubble screens. They'll throw some kind of inside, just to get him an opportunity, because the dude can run with the ball. And so
so if you had to go to switch that from receptions to yards,
does your answer change? Now that's the tricky part. I think A.D. Mitchell is going to have more yards receiving. I think Ladd McConkey is going to have more receptions.
Yeah, interesting.
I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I said it before on our last Natty recap that I think that A.D. Mitchell had his Devontae Smith moment in the national championship, and I think he's going to have a breakout season.
Yeah. I was waiting for you to say that. I didn't want to. I didn't want to steal your thunder. I knew that was coming.
Don't sleep. Don't sleep on Kyrus Jackson. Don't sleep on Kyrus.
Don't sleep.
You can't sleep on Kyrus.
I mean, I feel like we now have to mention that the official wide receiver by My God podcast is now officially partnered with Bojangles, right?
Bojangles. Absolutely, it's bow time.
Yeah, I love me some Bojangles. I
Man.
have driven
Yeah.
long lengths to go to Bojangles before it was more widespread.
I love King
Kira-
Kira singing "Happy Birthday" to Bojangles.
Hey, listen. I know the magical things that I get done off a Cajun filet biscuit in the morning. I can't imagine what Kyrus Jackson is going to do on the field after some bow time.
Oh, amazing. And then he had who's going to have more sacks, Nolan Smith or Robert Beal?
I think Nolan Smith is going to be an absolute sack machine. But I'm going to go with Robert Beal, and here's why. I do think teams will account for Nolan Smith. I think when you talk about pass protection, when you talk about those things, he's going to be a guy that you have to account for, and I think that opens up an opportunity for a guy like Robert Beal to do work.
Do you think Nolan's going to have that Nakobe Dean kind of role in this year's defense, where he's quarterbacking the defense?
It's hard to do that from his position, but I could see it. I mean, I think that's something that it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Somebody's going to have to be that quarterback, and I think Nolan is the guy that I would pick to be it. It's just a matter of can he do it from certain parts of the field that they're going to line him up where it's Nakobe Dean played that off-ball backer kind of middle of the field where you literally can like see the alignment and you can get guys in position. And I think Nolan tends to be on the outside, creeped up on the edge a little bit more, and that's difficult to see behind you of what's going on. So, but I do think in the defensive huddle, he's going to be that guy for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yeah, he seems like he seems like he's that role right now. I don't know who else would be, but in my head, he's the quarterback for sure. And as far as like the sacks go, my money would have been on Beal as well. But I do think that Nolan's going to have his moments.
Yeah. I think just like from the position, I don't know, like Beal is more kind of lines up in more of that edge rush slot, so I think that'll lend to him doing it most likely as well. So I'll go with that. And then last, which true freshman will have the biggest impact this year? So
John follows the Croots more, so he's probably already got someone in his head.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let y'all go if you want to go.
I mean, all right. So like last year we had, I think, a similar question last year, and I think, I mean, John, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like we said Brock Bowers. Like I feel like
Brock Bowers.
We did.
Okay,
we did.
So so here's the thing. I would have maybe said Delp, but with the tight end room as deep as it is, I'm not sure that that's realistic just because of depth there. So I don't know. I'm not sure this is right either, but because of our love for Dejon Edwards, but what about Branson Robinson? I don't know. He could potentially be one to watch as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, for me, I think on the offensive side of the ball, I probably would pick Branson Robinson. The challenge with Branson is going to be he wasn't an early enrollee.
Yeah.
And when you don't enroll early at Georgia, trying to learn the offense, pick up pass protections, like all those things, it can be very difficult for a player just from the complexity. But I could see him, having some breakout. I'm going to go on the defensive side of the ball, though, and maybe I'll say this, maybe on special teams and or defense, but I'm going to go with Malachi Starks. I think
was
Malachi
just about to say Malachi
that Malachi Starks. I think you're going to see Malachi Starks maybe return some kicks. I think he may see him do some interesting things. I don't think he's going to be a two-way player like a Champ Bailey situation, but he is athletically gifted enough where I could see Georgia trying to find ways to get him the ball, even though he is very much a defensive player. But I think he's just gifted. Honestly, I'll say this, and he's definitely bigger than him, but I forgot his name now. Tyrann Mathieu is who Malachi Starks like athletically. So he's Malachi Starks is 6'1", 200 pounds.
205, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Tyrann Mathieu is like he's like I don't know 5'8" or something. He's a very short guy, but athletically gifted. From a safety position, Malachi Starks reminds me of a honey badger type guy.
So
Nice.
I was going to say Malachi Starks for no other reason other than he is listed on UGA's football roster as athlete. Every other person on the roster has a position. He is just listed as ath.
Yeah.
I like it.
That was going to be my guess, was that it just seems like that they're going to figure out ways for him to get involved in the games, much in the same way that we used to do. Meikle just figured out ways to impact the game, right?
Yeah.
So that's my
well as a junior, Malachi Starks played quarterback and threw for like 600 yards, but he ran for like 1,600 yards as a junior in high school. Like this guy is very comfortable. He's very comfortable with the ball in his hand, so should be fun to watch.
Nice. Do we foresee some passing downfield from Malachi at some point in his career at UGA? Champ Bailey-esque?
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
I mean, Todd Gurley threw a pass. You never know. All right. So I don't know. This guy submitted a question. Graham Coffey at Dog Out West. Graham checks in. Best Georgia play you have ever witnessed, but he clarifies that you had to be in the stadium. So best play you ever witnessed when you were at the game that Georgia lost. Yeah. And then he said, "Here's mine." And his is excellent. He said, "If Georgia beats Florida and stays undefeated, the Joe Tereshinski III catch where he mossed the defender is still on the pregame jumbotron intro with Munson's narration." So that was 05 Florida. Here's Thomas Brown, I believe, to Joe Tereshinski for a touchdown. That's a good one. The in the stadium thing is what gets me, because I didn't read this correctly at first, and like all my answers were games I wasn't at. Do you guys have one that comes to mind?
A game that you witnessed that was the greatest play? Is that?
So it's the greatest play in a game that you were at, but Georgia lost the game.
But Georgia lost the game.
It's a tough question. I'll give mine. I can give mine. Mine are super painful. Dude, like, I think one of a good thing, and I don't know if this is necessarily a qualifier, but the thing about Graham's is, like, I agree with him. Like, we win that game. We find a way to beat Auburn the next week, and that team goes undefeated. So similar as far as, like, impact as well of a game. I mean, in the 2017 national championship game, I mean, the touchdown pass from Jake Fromm to Mecole Hardman was insane. Yeah. And I that's a game that I was at. So I could go with that one, or, I mean, what we thought was going to be the play of the game. I mean, the sack on first down and overtime. Mm-hmm. I mean, either of those two, I could go with either of those.
Yeah, for me, it's this is hard, but I would say for me, honestly, it's going to be the Brock Bowers touchdown from the SEC championship game last year, where he caught that little screen from Stetson Bennett and he ran through 5 Alabama defenders. Where, I mean, this is a true freshman in the SEC championship game against the Alabama defense, and he literally takes on a linebacker, a defensive lineman, and a cornerback. Like, all at once, you have a safety, a linebacker, and a cornerback converge on him after he's already kind of shaken off a defensive lineman. And he just runs through those guys. I think it's not, it certainly wasn't the prettiest play from like somebody mossing somebody or a long throw or whatever. But it definitely was my personal favorite that I've witnessed in a game that Georgia has lost. In a game that Georgia has won, I'm going to flip it because we got to go there. it would be the flea flicker versus Mississippi State when Georgia won 31-3. The teams were both top 15 teams, and Jake Fromm comes out to Terry Godwin. They do the flea flicker and on the first offensive play of the game for Georgia.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing.
So.
JP, you got one. JP's still thinking.
No, I have it. I'm just trying to remember exactly like what happened. I think. All right, so maybe Jim, you might be able to help me because you have a photographic memory on these things.
Okay, I'm here.
Mine is going to be the Sugar Bowl versus West Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
we go up on a long pass play with DJ Shockley, and I want to say it was Brian McClendon, but I can't remember who it was that caught the pass.
Oh man. Oh gosh, I actually don't know. So I'm trying to think with that team, it could have been McClendon. It would have either been McClendon. It wouldn't have been Bailey because didn't Bailey tear his ACL in the SEC title game? I think Sean Bailey.
Yeah.
I think he did. And then it could have been like Kenneth Harris, maybe. But I do feel like it was McClendon.
Was McClendon in 16?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was
what's sticking out in my head because it was a diving. He basically catches the pass and just dives into the end zone.
Yeah.
Things got really chippy at the end, and I'll just never forget that. Like I was losing my mind that we got it, and then I remember we got down there and it was fourth down, and I was standing there like just super excited. My stupid dumb ass self was just like so stoked. I had no ability to really read what was going on, but the guy next to me, it could have been Bobby for all I don't know. I was on the 50-yard line. We were media seats. I was on the 50-yard line for that game. And this guy next to me was just like, "Yeah, watch for the fake punt," and there it went.
Yeah, I saw it. Well, I was watching on TV, so I saw it coming. But
yeah, I'll give you.
It was McClendon, number 16.
Okay, nice.
So I mentioned the Brock Bowers one. I'm going to give you real quick a quick fire. Alec Ogletree in the 2012 SEC Championship game, blocking the field goal and running it back 55 yards was probably the best. So games that Georgia's lost, I've been to very few of them in my lifetime. And I tend to black them out. So I had blacked out that game entirely. Like that game did not exist in my memory bank anywhere. And as I was going through the catalog, I remembered being at that one and Alec Ogletree running that back. And Georgia goes up 21-10, and we think we're about to go beat the brakes off of Notre Dame in this BCS national championship, but not to be.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, one that's like close, athletically was amazing, was the Pollock interception against Florida in 2002. It was the game that we lost. And that was the one where like, if everyone had just blocked for him, or if he would have lateraled Deshaun Jones instead of like doing a forward handoff, that would have been a touchdown. So that's like athletically, that interception and his run back was pretty good. Okay, this has turned into a depressing.
I'll flip the script. I'll flip the script like John did and talk about my favorite play that I remember. It was Wansley intercepts.
Oh yeah, Tennessee,
dude. Tennessee,
the goalpost game.
Dude. Yeah, the goalpost came down. I was there.
I mean, Stetson to AD Mitchell and Keely Ringo, Chip Six are up there. Ones that I was there.
I played in a playoff game against Tim Wadsley when I was a freshman in high school.
Nice.
Still to this day, I played against some good players. He was up there easily in the top 5 of best I've ever played against on the field. Made a bunch of us Northwest Georgia boys look absolutely silly many times. So
that was back when they used to call him Mighty Mouse was his nickname back then.
Yep.
Great player. All right, Graham, hopefully that sufficed. All right, last but certainly not least. All right.
It's been too long.
It's been too long. I was excited that Coach Trillbill has submitted some preseason over-unders. And as a reminder, we do not track whether these hit or not. Coach Trill does that for us. Okay. Georgia's preseason AP ranking over under 3.5.
Preseason?
Mm-hmm.
Preseason, I'm gonna say over.
AP preseason ranking.
AP, I'm gonna say under. I think they're
Under.
gonna
What
rank
does
Georgia.
under
Hold
mean?
on. Is under? I was gonna say. Hold on. Wait. Time out.
Under means it's below 3.5, so that would be 1, 2, or 3, or
Yes.
some.
Okay.
Thank you for
Okay.
clarifying.
Thank
Over
you.
is going to be 4 or higher.
Yeah.
I'm going with the under as well. Three seems right.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a clean sweep. Under. Okay. Natty highlights in the pregame Sanford hype video over under 2.5.
Ooh, that's a good line. I would say it's at least going to be 2. Um,
I think it's over. Can I tell you why? So one, you got the chip 6 is going to be there. Like that can't not be there. You're going to have. I would assume. I would love to think they're going to have Stetson and A.D. Mitchell in there, and then
Of
you're
course.
going to at least.
Brock.
And then and then even plus you're telling me you're not going to have Kirby kissing the trophy. I don't know if that counts or not, but
That's fair.
right?
Yep.
So that's at least 3 for me.
In-game highlights. Damn.
In-game highlights changes. That's a good point. But there, I think you would have Brock. I would think you would have at least Brock Bowers touchdown, 80 Mitchell touchdown.
If they did do Kirby kissing the trophy, I do think that would buck the trend of that video, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, it's always in-game highlights where everybody loses their freaking minds.
True. But you're telling me people aren't going to lose their minds at Kirby kissing the trophy?
No.
All right. Let's see.
Me personally, I'll give you my 3. I think it's going to be over. I think it's going to be the tip 6. I think it's going to be Stetson to A.D. Mitchell. I think it's going to be Jalen Carter blocking the field goal.
Oh, yeah. Definitely over. Add another one to the mix. Totally over.
Yeah.
Okay. Over under.
What if they had one of Nick Saban just throwing his hands up in the air?
No, they should have one. No, they should have one of. They should have one of Nick Saban shaking Kirby's hand and saying, "You guys kicked our ass in the 4th quarter." Put that on the Jumbotron.
Oh, that would be amazing. That'd be amazing.
I would just love to just see just Nick Saban just throwing his hands up over and over again.
That's gone, by the way. I went back because I didn't grab the whole video when we grabbed that for I grabbed it for the audio or whatever, but that's the only clip I have. It's not on ESPN.com anymore. They took it down. The Bama, what are they called? Hometown? The Bama hometown broadcast is not on ESPN.com anymore. Unfortunately, I can't preserve it. So if anyone has that, let us know.
We need to get our inside sources on that.
Yeah, we need to find it. We need to try to put glasses on it. So let's see. Reusable Kirby quotes at SEC Media Days. Over under 2.5.
Under. Kirby gave us the what was the Socrates or something that he gave us last year? That's success comes to those who are too busy to be looking for it, or whatever his quote was. That was the one that came out last year. I'm gonna go under. I don't think Kirby. I love Kirby Smart. He is my coach, but I don't think his media days are very memorable.
I hope that he comes out there with some. So there was an article that I recently read, and it wasn't something that I was very aware of. Did you guys know that they had a historian come through and talk about the Aztec Empire prior to the national championship game, the burning the boats? I didn't know that. Did you guys know that?
Yeah.
Apparently there was a big.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's amazing. I was going to say they have, so for those who don't know, they generally script the themes at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
And then they have speakers and stuff throughout the season that are kind of Because you hear Kirby, like, he talked about connection a lot, for example. He was like, that was our theme, and they have speakers come in. I don't think the burn the boats thing was actually, like, I think that was an actual, like, motivational thing that just came. Like, I don't think it was.
Yeah.
I don't think that was, like, planned as part of their themes. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
agreed.
that was, it was like something that came out, like, I don't know when it was, but some kind of motivational speaker came out and talked to them about burning the boats. So I'm hoping that he brings up burning the boats, because that was amazing.
That'd be great.
It could be. I'm gonna lean. I'll lean under as well. So I think we've all agreed on everything.
Yep.
That's okay. That's tip as par for the course.
So
My God
far.
podcast. All right, home night games this season. Over under 1.5.
I'm going over. I'm going to say we get 2 night games in Sanford Stadium this season. I think Tennessee is going to be one, and I think I'm going to say Auburn is going to be the other. I think those 2 will be night games in Sanford.
John really wants to push at 1.5, but the way I can see that
dark. Wait, what time does it get dark in November? So, like, if it starts at 3:30 and the sun is out, and then it's dark by the time.
That was going to be my concern, is like Auburn or Tennessee being the 3:30 kickoff. Does that count? I don't think that counts.
I was about to say, I need to pull my photographer wife into this and ask her when it gets dark in November.
I'm going to go under to be like edgy and disagree on something, because I think Auburn or Tennessee, one of those will be a 3:30 kickoff, and then the other one, and because like Georgia Tech, I mean that'll probably be a nooner. So
I would love to have a night game versus Georgia Tech, just to have it, right?
Yeah.
Like, just to.
Yeah. I hate those guys. JP, are you like rigorously going through the schedule trying to figure out your over under?
I'm looking at the schedule. I mean, Tech pretty much is the only one that sticks out to me, because Auburn's going to be 3:30, Tennessee's going to be 3:30. I mean,
but will Auburn?
Everything else is going to be nooner.
Yeah, I don't think it's a guarantee that Auburn will be. But
what other games are on October 8th? I mean, that's really the only opportunity, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, so you're going under? So we got
I'm going to go under. Yeah.
2 unders and an over. And then SEC announces more future additional teams to be added to the conference between now and week 1. Over under 2.5 teams. I'm going to go under. I think we're sitting pat until the season starts. Maybe that's
on top of the Texas and Oklahoma announcement.
Yeah. Will we announce more than our
under?
Yeah,
for sure, under.
I'm going to say under, but I won't be surprised if the SEC does announce 2 teams.
Literally nothing surprises us anymore.
That's fair. That's a fair take.
Yeah. But I don't think they're going to announce 3 or 4. I definitely don't think they're going to announce 3.
I agree. They won't announce 3.
Texas A&M Alabama is October 8th, by the way. So I think that punts Auburn to a 3:30 kickoff.
Well, no, but Texas. See, it depends, because that Texas and A&M Alabama would be the 3:30, right?
Yeah, I think CBS.
So we'd be the night game.
CBS
would that be a double? Would that be a double game?
Yeah, but I'm not gonna. I wouldn't be shocked if that ends up being a day game. That was the 8:00 game last year, and I don't know if. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they
Tennessee at LSU.
No, maybe. I mean that could be a night game. That would be a 3:30.
LSU gets a lot of night games, so I'm still gonna go with you.
God, I hope we get Auburn. I hope we get Auburn at night. That would be so amazing.
That would be Auburn night game. Bulldog Bourbon Social Club tailgate could be pretty epic. That'd be nice.
The downside is, if we're getting night games, I don't know if that's good for Georgia.
Right, you want the 3:30.
Because generally, if you're getting those night games, you're at like the 7 o'clock on the SEC network or whatever, and that doesn't necessarily mean that
No,
you're.
it's going to be 7 o'clock ESPN for sure. Don't talk that way. Don't bring that bad energy. Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
I'm like, am I like old that like I kind of like like if I'm going, I'd rather it be 3:30. I mean, 3:30 is the biggest kickoff anyway. And now that I know the way Stanford can rock for a 12 p.m. kickoff against Arkansas, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm not super worried about it anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, I honestly, I went to mini games last year. Maybe the most I've been to, because I went to a couple of away games. It may have been the most I've been to in a single season in a long time. And those noon kickoffs, like, I hated them as a fan, but then when I went there and got in Athens at 9:30 and tailgated and went to the game, and then got out of the game at like 3:30 and then was back home
Yeah, right.
by like 6 o'clock, I was like, oh, this is I'm back home to watch the night games on TV.
Exactly.
It kind of felt, I didn't hate it. But I do hope for Georgia's just just for our brand and the television audience situation. I do hope that we get a couple night games.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, you got those LED lights that we copied from Alabama. And I mean, why copy those lights from Alabama if you can't even if you have the day games and you can't use them? If we're going to copy from Bama, we should at least have the opportunity.
That is true. Those lights. I mean, that like the Notre Dame game when that was the first time they were used, I believe.
Yeah,
right.
I was there. Yep.
That was awesome.
Yeah, at the end of the
we got to sync all that up to the Natty celebrations for the Auburn folks, because they won't know what to do.
Yeah,
they won't know what to do. Do they cheer that Alabama lost?
That's a good question. Good question. Well, John Powell, do you have any? So that exhausts the listener questions. I don't know if you have any like meaning of life type topics that you were hanging on to that sometimes you have when we talk.
I don't have any meaning of life. I don't have any meaning of life questions per se.
I shouldn't have opened this can of worms.
we could definitely go down that route. I mean, we'll do our preseason recording later, but I'll save the off the rails conversations for then.
Okay.
Well, I have one thing to ponder for the listeners.
Let's do it.
If an Alabama receiver gets injured in the woods, do you still get to use it as an excuse for losing the Natty?
Why do I feel like John's been saying that for the cold open?
Just think about that as you're pondering the meaning of life.
So good.
Think about that.
So good. I don't think we can have anything better to end on than that. So
I don't think. Yeah, that's it. Shut it down.
Well, hey. So first off, it's good to be back. Apologies for the hiatus. Sometimes life gets in the way, and but this was fun. I mean, like we have texted, but we haven't talked like this at least for this long for months. So this has been fun, if nothing else. So thank you both for joining, and good to be back.
Yeah, man. Go Dogs and go to Dawgs Central.
Yeah. DawgsCentral.com. Come join us for more inside intel and off the rails conversation.
Awesome. All right. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.